Hey, we're talking about momentum, and if you have your workbook, hopefully you do, on page 4, there's some fill in the blanks. The reason we do fill in the blanks is not to insult your intelligence, but so that we can cover a whole bunch of stuff faster. And I'm going to fly as fast as I can through these notes because I just want to kind of download the content, do a few minutes of Q&A. If you ask a question that we're going to answer in another session, or I'm going to say, hey, I don't want to answer that question now, Craig's session answers that, or we'll come back to it later. But we want this to be as interactive as possible, and we really just want to say, here's a whole bunch of stuff we've learned. We don't know everything, but here's all that we know about these subjects. Momentum at the top of your notes is kind of my made-up definition for momentum because it's primarily a mathematical formula, essentially, or it's found within the context of math. But when we talk about momentum, it's this. It's forward motion fueled by a series of wins. It's the forward motion that you feel as a leader in your organization fueled by a series of wins. And if you've ever been in a department or division within your organization or in a church that has momentum, you know what it is even if you can't define it. You know when you have it. Things are easier. Your problems have to do with we need more seats. The problems have to do with we need a bigger building. Your problems have to do with we need to build a bigger area for our student ministry. The problems have to do with managing crowds and growth. And what are we going to do with all this money? Actually, we've never had that problem, but you know, the momentum is everything, the rock is rolling down the hill and you're just trying to keep up with it. You know what I'm talking about? And if you don't have momentum, you know that as well because everything's difficult. Everything's a little bit negative. All the meetings, everybody walks out with a frown on their face and it's just problem after problem. And they aren't the good kind of problems, they're the bad kind of problems. And so, you know, several years ago, I began to ask the question, because I've been in environments with momentum, without momentum. It is a drag to try to lead in an organization that lacks momentum, but there's some things that are good about a lack of momentum we'll talk about in just a minute. But the thing that kind of drove me to this topic was to ask the question, what if there are things that we can learn from any organization that experiences momentum? What if we took those principles or those insights, and what if there's a way to leverage those to create momentum in a division or department, a business, a church, you know, a group of churches that lacks momentum? And so that's sort of what sent me down the road on this this pursuit of insight to say, what if there's things that we can learn about these organizations, bring them into the areas of our church or churches that lack momentum and begin to apply those? What if there's things everybody has in common? Now, if you're a business leader or if you've come out of business into ministry, you know that background. When a business, and this is why this is important for church world, when a business lacks momentum, because the bottom line is income, which it should be. That's the point of business. When the money's not coming in, businesses are generally quick to make changes that they think are necessary to get things going and to create a sense of momentum. The problem in the church is this, that in the church, the bottom line for us isn't money, or it shouldn't be. So unfortunately, if there's a lack of momentum in terms of ministry, but there's enough money to pay the bills, nobody gets concerned about the fact that there's no momentum in terms of ministry. You know, when's the last time you baptized somebody? I think it was 1978, I think. But we're paying all our bills. In fact, we got extra money because 4 people died and left us a bunch of money, so we're cool. You know, I mean, that's extreme. But you see the point that as long as churches can pay the bills, generally not we specifically, but generally church leaders aren't really that concerned about a lack of momentum because, hey, we're paying the bills. In the business world, people start losing their jobs. I mean, they just make quick changes oftentimes to gain momentum because at the end of the day, if there's not a profit, they're in trouble. Now, I'm not arguing in our talk that the church needs to think like a business in terms of profit, but here's what I am arguing. If we were as concerned about what we say we're concerned about, which is the mission of our church, mission of your church, the vision for your church, whatever that might be, if we were really, really sold out to whatever it is your vision is or your mission is for your church, and there's not momentum, it should bother us more than the business down the street that lacks momentum, that's willing to do all kinds of extreme things to create financial momentum. We should be more bothered than marketplace leaders. And we have marketplace leaders here today who are Christians who would say absolutely. In fact, one of the reasons marketplace leaders don't like church is because they don't think church leaders take their mission all that seriously. Because they know in the marketplace what they're willing to do, the changes they're willing to make in order to create momentum in their organizations. And they come to our churches and say, wait a minute, you're telling me eternity's at stake? You really believe everybody lives forever somewhere? Well, then why the heck are you so content to just sort of plod along? If What's at stake is what you say is at stake. It's easy to make excuses for lack of momentum. Here's 3 I wrote down. Well, if my church was just in the same area, if I was in that area, we'd have momentum. Well, if I had her on staff, I guess we'd have momentum too. Well, if I could communicate like that, or if we had a preacher like that, I guess we'd have momentum too. And if I had a building like that, I guess we'd have momentum. The problem is, whatever your excuses are in terms of personnel or facility, then you turn around and you hear about some of these church plants that are some in this area that overnight you've got 100, then 500, then 1,000 people. And there go all your excuses because they had no staff, they had no reputation, they had no facility. So what is it that allows certain organizations or ministries to create and maintain momentum? Last thing before we jump into the notes. One reason this is so important is if you, and I don't even know how to say this as strongly as I think I should because of how important it is, but if you have momentum and you don't know why, you are just one stupid decision away from destroying your momentum. Now, in church world, here's how we cover that. We say, well, God's just blessing. God's just blessing it. Now, I don't know why. It's just you give all the credit and the glory to God. And believe me, I'm all for giving all the glory and the credit to God. But if you have something great going on in an area of ministry in your church or in your church in general, you owe it to yourself and the people who are following you to discover, where is this coming from? You need to understand it. It's not spiritual to say, well, we're not going to do our homework. We're just going to give all the glory to God. And to be honest, and I don't want to talk too much about this, it's a little arrogant. And here's why. Because essentially what you're saying is God's just blessing us, but God isn't blessing them or them or them or them or them. We have momentum because God has chosen. He said, who's the holiest leader in the city? There she is. Let's penalize all. You see, it's a little arrogant to just say, well, it's just God chose us. What can we do? So it's true. Here's the thing. It's true that in your church or in a division of your church, God is blessing. The question is, what is he blessing? And is it possible to take that thing or that principle or that thing you've discovered or accidentally bumped into, is it possible to take that thing that God seems to bless and to extract it and apply it to other areas of your church or to your church or your church plant in general? If you don't have momentum, this is really important because you want it. And the problem is, we're all guilty of this. In our attempt to try to create momentum, we all do some pretty stupid things. Or we look at what other people are doing who have momentum and we say, well, we think the reason they have momentum is they have like really cool flyers that they mail out to the neighborhood. That's their secret. We're going to try that, and it doesn't work. We think the secret so we guess and we guess and we guess and we guess and we try all kinds of things and spend all kinds of money and embarrass ourselves with all kinds of what we thought were great ideas that we hope nobody ever finds out about because we don't understand momentum. So this is what kind of drove us to begin asking the question, are there transferable principles as it relates to momentum? And so I want to tell you what we've learned about this. I'm going to try to zip through this quick, answer a few questions. But the bottom line is really my main point, Roman numeral 1. 3 components of sustained momentum, and all 3 are important. We're going to talk about